Like, do you want to be average, or do you want to be great, or do you want to be phenomenal?
Change doesn't wait for permission. She's a doctor, entrepreneur, four-time cancer survivor. Her work reminds us that courage isn't loud. It's a quiet decision to move anyway. Please welcome Dr. Michele Kehrer.
And in order to be phenomenal, you gotta be bigger. And the only way to be bigger is get out of your comfort zone. Like, jump out. You talk a lot about your comfort zone in the work that you do. So if education, money, geography, if there was no boundaries, what would it look like? What would be the best thing? What would happen if you failed? What's the worst case scenario and the best case scenario? And 90% of the time, more of the best case scenario is going to happen.
Most people don't avoid change because they're lazy. They avoid change because they feel that the safer, the comfort zone feels much better than the unknown. And there's a fear that stops them from taking the brave shift. I wish we all had like a crystal ball and we could see into the future, and then that would make anything that we do or any action, like producing this podcast. If I knew that at 100 episodes we will be 10,000 subscribers, it'll make this journey so much easier, right? But that's not the truth.
Yeah, but you can't get to 10,000 subscribers without having one.
Most people don't avoid change because they're lazy. They avoid change because they feel that the safer, the comfort zone feels much better than the unknown. And there's a fear that stops them from taking the brave shift. Today, I have with me Dr. Michele, who joins us from the US, and we're going to have this conversation that if you stay with us as listeners through the next 45 odd minutes, then we'll give you some principles, some mental models that'll help you go through that process of change. Because change is going to happen. How we're accepting and adapting to it or not is the question. Welcome to the conversation, Dr. Michele.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be with you. It's so exciting to me.
Absolutely. Same here. I'm excited. And what we do at the podcast is that we want to put ourselves into the deep end. And so the first question that we open up with, Michele, is that if that 8-year-old little girl, 8-year-old Michele, wherever you were growing up, if that 8-year-old comes and meets you right now, what kind of a conversation do you think will emerge between the two of you?
So if I got a hold of my 18-year-old me, I would tell her, you don't have to quite be as dramatic. Like, things are going to be good. Things are going to be better than good. You're going to end up having a lot of fun. And the things that seem big now just aren't.
So you're going to have a lot of fun, things that are big aren't. What was it about that 8-year-old girl that you still vividly remember?
Well, so I was a runner. I was in high school and I was a very good runner. And my senior year of high school, like when you get picked up by university and things like that, I tore my Achilles tendon. And so my running career was over, which for me, being that young, I was like, well, who's going to pay for my school? How's this going to work? What's going to happen next? Am I going to walk again? Like all those very dramatic, huge things that, you just don't know when you're that age because you don't have the perspective of time, right? Only being on the planet for 18 years, like I had so few experiences to relate to.
Yeah. This perspective of time, I wish we all had like a crystal ball and we could see into the future, and then that would make anything that we do or any action, like producing this podcast. If I knew that at 100 episodes we will be 10,000 subscribers, it'll make this journey so much easier, right? But that's not the truth.
Yeah. But you can't get to 10,000 subscribers without having one.
I love that. So you cannot get to that journey, that milestone without taking that first step. But taking that first step, Michele, seems so hard.
Yeah. And when you think about it, this is what I love the most is time is going to pass no matter what. So if you sit and procrastinate, that, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years is going to go by anyway. Only you're going to have so many more stories. I love living life for the story. If you go ahead and give it a try, like, don't we learn best by falling and skinning our knees? Aren't those the best stories?
I love that. So you're saying time's going to pass by and then that the clock's not going to stop for you. And if you take some action, what's the worst that could happen is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And when you were starting your podcast, did you have like some totally silly and some mess ups and some like, you probably listened to like your first couple and go, I can't believe anyone listened to me. But that's part of learning and growing. I mean, no one comes out of mama's womb as an expert.
Yeah. And so I think it's fear, right? Which I would love for us to speak about because we fear the future, we fear the unknown. Where's this fear come? How does this fear stop us from taking that brave shift?
Well, fear. I think there's that one acronym. What is it? Fear is excitement without the breath. I forget what the whole thing is. I'm messing that up a little bit. But the thing that really can help you overcome that is having courage. Courage is choosing to act when faced with your fear. So knowing that it's going to be scary. Wow, how exhilarating is it going to be when you accomplish that or overcome it or even just, take that first step?
I love to play the devil's advocate on the podcast, and I'm say stepping into the shoes of the listener. 27 years old, they just completed like the third year in their first job. Now they know that there's more opportunity of growth outside, and they want to grow, or they want to go back to uni and study something. But there's this fear, right? And you and I can talk about it here, but in that moment, the fear grips them and stops them from taking action. So what are some mental models that you've experienced that a 27-year-old listening to both of us right now will feel like, damn, I got this?
Yeah. Well, the really like example. So I think it was 20 something, and because I had torn my Achilles tendon, I went to a uni that was less expensive because I paid for myself. And then I realized I wanted to become an athletic trainer. Well, the best way was to go to the best school. Well, if I was going to go to the best school, that meant leaving my family, my friends, the boyfriend I had at the time, who I was convinced I was going to marry, right? When don't we all know that? And I was like, okay, if I don't do this, I could still have a good career, but I don't want to have a good career. I want to have a great career. Like, do you want to be average or do you want to be great or do you want to be phenomenal? And in order to be phenomenal, you got to be bigger. And the only way to be bigger is get out of your comfort zone. Like jump out. You talk a lot about your comfort zone in the work that you do. Comfort zones, they're great, but you don't meet people in your comfort zone. You don't have experiences. You don't have good laughs in your comfort zone.
Yeah. So that's one thing you're saying. So the comfort zone is something that we all tend to start to enjoy and feel safe in, right? And so the fear comes up and does not allow to take that step. So I'm going to go back to that 27-year-old. Knows they want to change the job, knows they want to grow and be great, but they don't know how to take any action on that. So what are some steps? What are some mental mindset shifts? What are some brave shifts you want them to think about right now?
Yeah, my favorite thing, and this is part of my book, is, and it's on the cover because I've used this analogy so much. I will hand someone a pen and say, here's a magic paintbrush. Write down what you want in life. So if education, money, geography, if there was no boundaries, what would it look like? And what would be the best thing you could do? And what would happen if you failed? What's the worst case scenario and the best case scenario? And 90% of the time, more of the best case scenario is going to happen than any of the worst case scenario. So dream big, write it down and use a Post-it note and stick it on your bathroom mirror. Put it on your phone. Use it as a screensaver for your phone. Tell everyone, because oh my gosh, if you tell everyone what you really want, and then next time they see you 2 months later, 2 weeks later, hey, hey, Utkarsh, how you doing with that thing you were working on?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't, then you didn't do anything. You have to admit that you didn't do anything on it. And that's one thing your ego is does not like to fail.
Yeah. I love that. So that magic paintbrush, and all you're doing is not even taking any action. All you're doing is just writing down what you want in life and the best case and the worst case. That's fascinating. Have you seen that play out in the work that you do, or with someone like any examples that come to mind?
Yeah, I would do that with all of my employees. I had a physical therapy practice and we were teaching institutions. So we had students and we had volunteers and we had like more than half the people were usually in some sort of learning role. And when they would come in, I'd be like, okay, what are you going to teach me while you're here? And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you've got new stuff. You have different experiences than I do. What are you going to teach me? And when that broke down that fear and that like the whole like put someone on a pedestal that you admire, like break that down right away because everyone started with a blank slate. And then when they kind of went, well, I don't know what I'm going to teach you. I'm like, okay, well, your homework is, well, you by this date, you're going to come up with what you're going to teach me. Then after doing that, what do you want to get out of this? So in your 90 days, in your 6 months, in your whatever time frame, how will you know if we did a good job for you? We are your learning laboratory. So be demanding of us. What are you going to demand that we teach you? And I'm like, whoa. And it takes the whole experience from passive to active.
Yeah, yeah. I love the idea of calling this like an experimental lab, because the pressure of performing, that just disappears, because all you're now seeing is, let me go and run an experiment and see what might emerge. So to that, coming back to that 27-year-old, you don't have to really change anything right now. Can you just go out and ask 5 people if they have a job that might work for you? And so all you're doing is running the experiment to see what might be an outcome. Love that.
And then for extra credit, go and like randomly talk to people who are like 30 or 50 years older than you and just ask them their life path. Hey, when you came out of uni, did you do the thing that you studied?
Yeah.
Probably not many would say yes. And so then when you know that, okay, this is a normal thing to change my mind and change directions and pivot, then it becomes so much less scary. And then that fear doesn't own us.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you've normalized the fear. Love that. And what do you see some of the big fears that stop people from taking action?
People will get in their heads, imposter syndrome, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not just the general head trash. And I think everyone in the world has it. But somehow, even though everyone in the world has their own head trash, we seem to think that we're some unicorn, unique person that is the only one that's ever had head trash that is limiting them.
Yeah, that's right. I love the phrasing. Instead of calling them like negative thoughts or anything that's larger than life, you're calling it head trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to take up the garbage, right? Otherwise, your house would stink. So take out the trash in your head.
Take out the trash, and you do that weekly with your house. What's stopping you to do that with your brain?
Yeah.
Hmm.
An easiest way is your magic paintbrush and write it out.
Yeah, yeah. Just take the trash. Just take out the trash. When someone's trying to take out the trash, what are some practices that you think will allow them to beyond the magic brush? Is there something else that you feel that they'll be able to use and be more efficient in taking out the trash?
Interestingly enough, exercise, whether it's walking or running or just getting out in nature will also work. Taking your perspective and making it bigger than you. Exercise is amazing. Getting your heart pumping changes the neurochemistry in your brain. It is really hard to be in a bad mood after a run or a good hard sweat. And for me, I loved running not even for health, but because it helped me clear my head.
Yeah, I love that idea. I was talking to my elder son this morning. He's 15. So we were talking about being consistent at the gym last year or not. As he had a very interesting question. He was like, I don't even know why I go to the gym with you. And I'm like, okay, but you've been going like 280 days out of 365 last year. So there has to be some reason that you're doing this with me. And so then I asked him, like, at the end of a workout, how do you feel? And he's answered, I feel great. That's why you're going to the gym every day. And I love what you have brought this, how exercise, getting out in nature allows you to take out the trash really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I see people who are trying to stay safe and who are unable to take that brave shift, and I love this term brave shift, and I'll keep using it throughout our podcast and beyond. When someone's unable to take that brave shift, what do you think they stand to lose?
Everything. Isn't sitting in an action, sitting without action, so I didn't want to be like inaction and without action, isn't that intolerable?
Yeah, so there's a massive cost that there is for those who are not taking action, who are staying in the zone without taking any action.
Everything suffers. Human bodies, just look at us. If we don't stretch and move and think and talk and socialize, we shrink. In nature, there's a rock that's on the front yard. Um, if it does, no one picks it up and moves it, or nothing happens, eventually there's going to be mold on it, or leaves are going to cover it up, or whatever. All of us, everything needs action and movement.
Yeah, yeah. There's a saying I simply love. I think it goes about action is the antidote to anxiety.
Yeah.
So simple, but such a powerful shift. What I've also sensed is that it's how we feel about ourselves, and so what is the identity that we're living with. So, for example, if someone's never gone for a run, they want to do it, but they feel that their identity is of a non-runner. So, how does one shift that identity from saying that, oh, I don't know how to run, or I cannot run, or I'll not be able to run, to moving into a state where I say that, oh, I can try it. I can maybe be a runner.
The challenge, what's the definition of a runner? So they have some head trash, something that they've defined runner as something, right? That's different than them. Well, what if you change the definition? It's kind of funny. Like, this is so silly, but sometimes my fiance, he was like, he wants to have, pancakes for dinner, a breakfast for dinner. Well, who says pancakes are breakfast? Why not? Why not have them for dinner? Why not have them for lunch? Like, just what definition are you giving things? Where did you choose that definition? And can't you just change it?
Do that thought for a minute, because again, we've put that into that box, or how we've grown up / what society has told us, that pancakes can be breakfast and you cannot have them, but they're just food. And if you have them any other time of the day, they're still delicious. And so what you're saying is, to that runner, how do you define running? Do you define running as going and doing a half marathon, or just maybe 2 blocks? And that's a good starting point. Yeah. Yeah. What has been your experience of helping go through these identity shifts yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think talking it out, is a huge thing. Some people like vision boards. I was never really one on vision boards. But what recently just happened was I had a physical therapy practice downtown Chicago. I had lived downtown Chicago for 23 years. I had a physical therapy practice for 16 of those. I sold it, and suddenly I'm not a business owner anymore. I like, who am I? And then it was cold. So I'm like, well, maybe I'm just going to move to Florida. So now I'm not a Chicagoan anymore. And now I live in Florida without a title. So does that make me who I am? Even so, when I was first diagnosed with cancer and I went through chemotherapy, I had this long, long, long hair, like longer than it is now. I was super skinny because I was running. And so I had this, I was well endowed, we'll say. Well, one fell swoop, I lost my ability to run. I lost my hair because I went bald. And suddenly I lost everything so this was like everything that I thought defined me was gone within weeks. And at that point, there was no choice but to redefine who I am. And it's tough to figure out whether it was the move to Florida after selling business, or who I was after losing my hair and everything else. And that's when we start to tap deeper into our soul and into our hearts. Because isn't that what the big deal is? Isn't that the connection for each other? Like, someone can be very pretty or very smart or very rich or blah, 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 but that's not why you hang out with them. That's not why I came on this podcast. I came on this podcast because you're so passionate about change and about, you want to inspire people to move through, to communicate better, to challenge their own beliefs. If that wasn't who you are, someone who does that, who wants to do that, I wouldn't want to be here.
Thank you for acknowledging that. But it would not have been easy what you just said so thoughtfully and subtly so, because when cancer or any event in life hits you so hard that it shifts who you are, it takes a lot to rebuild who you want to be. And so if I were a fly on the wall the day that diagnosis came, Michelle, and the day you were in the doctor's office, or how are you going to kind of share that? And please, how much you're comfortable with, you get to control what you share here. But if I were a fly on the wall and I'm seeing you get to know about the diagnosis of the cancer, take me through it. What was happening?
Well, the first time was crazy. So I was in a marriage that wasn't going to work. My business was had just turned 1 year old. And so if you went back in time 6 months, I was like family planning and thinking like, oh my gosh, I have a new business and I'm newly married and everything's great. And then all of a sudden, like the cracks started to show and I realized I need to exit this marriage. So I did that. 2 days later, my business turned a year old. And, once a business turns a year old, you start to realize like, maybe it's not as perfect as we would have liked. And then I think it was like 10 days later is when I found a lump. And what a massive shift. I went from who I thought I was and where I was going to everything needs to change, including where I live and all of that. And so in some ways, not to say that it was easy, but shifting at those moments are easier than the 27-year-old that's considering a different job or going back to uni. Because though my stuff was forced, there wasn't a choice. Like, okay, at that point, it was like, you get cancer, you get chemotherapy. If you get chemotherapy, it means you're going to lose your hair. And then what does that mean for the business? And what does it mean for everything else in life? But the really brave move is when someone is dreaming and they're like, I want to change. What do I do? Where I live, how I'm going to do things, how I look. And because they're going to get pushback from friends and family. Oh, that's not smart. Or, oh, well, your job's good enough. You're fine. Though to those, that 27-year-old looking to shift, just do it. Your future self will be so happy.
You're making me go through these very paradoxical emotions, because as I'm listening to you, it's only 3 years ago that my wife and I, with our 2 kids, decided to move to Australia from India. And so I still vividly remember that moment when we were at the airport in India with our 4 suitcases and 2 kids but not in suitcases. And we were standing, saying goodbyes to our childhood friends, parents, and saying that we're heading to Australia and we might not come back. And that's what the plan now looks. And you're also very, so you're giving me back those memories. So, and then you're also very subtly, almost, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because what I'm hearing, you're reducing the pain of what you were going through, and you're saying that the 27-year-old is in a tougher position because they're choosing something that's not forced upon them. But whether it's your change or their change, like whoever needs to go through this shift, it needs a lot of quiet courage, because in that moment for you to reinvent your life would have taken immense courage that the 27-year-old will take. So what allowed you to get that courage, and where did that come from?
Yeah. I always say, like, you just have to dig deep. Find that dreamer. And find the one in you that is unhappy. And let that person take the wheel for a while. Because people rarely make decisions or choices or changes for happiness. Like you almost have to be in big pain to make a big change. So really focus for a minute, which is ironic, right? Like most people are like, don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. But if you want to make a big change, make your pain really, really real. Why? What is unfulfilling about your job? What is unfulfilling about your relationship? Or what was unfulfilling? Not to say that, you're leaving your friends and family. There was something unfulfilling. Obviously, family is perfect. But what was that thing that was like, no, we are going to do this. We're going to uproot everything and move to Australia. We're going to move halfway across the world. And it's because you knew what was on the other side could be great, but you felt that pain, that unsettled part of you. You let that blossom and grow. And I think that's the thing for people is that they push that down, and that's when we become miserable.
So amplify the pain, because in that amplification of the pain lies the push that you need to change something around. And
Yeah.
this is feeling like therapy because it's bringing back all those memories, which I'm very vocal about. So it's not that I'm not sharing them. And you're absolutely right. There was a pain that was large enough of staying where we were, which then made us realize that we're okay taking the smaller pain of being away from family. So absolutely resonate to that. And what you said here is again counterintuitive, because as you were saying, you would want to press the pain further down so that does not come up. But what you're saying is bring that pain out, make that pain really real, to then see what is it that you want to change.
Right. And then by making that pain so big, it keeps your momentum going. Because I'm sure there was a time when you were like, maybe it would be easier to go back to friends and family. But then it was like, no, like, let's remember why we did it in the first place. So that 27-year-old contemplating what's next, why? What is the thing that will truly, truly get them to the other side and keep them so that they push the past into the past so that they make that big, brave jump in big, brave shift into the future?
Yeah. Love that. Love that. As I was going through your book, out of the 30 rules that you shared, there were a few that were like really shouting out to me, saying that I want to bring them up to our conversation. The first one that came to my attention was, you said somewhere there that I think there's a second rule, that clean up your mess. What does that mean, and where did that come from?
Well, when I grew up, my mom was like, okay, we have to have a clean house. And so every Saturday, before we could go outside or play with friends and family or do anything, we had to clean the whole house. Dust everything. Oh my gosh. It was like forever. It was torture. But the good thing about that, the thing I learned about that was like, okay, if it's my mess, I need to clean it up. And it's like that now. I was like, I'm pretty diligent about keeping things in order. But sometimes life happens and all of a sudden, I'll do that dish later and I'll put that mail away later. And then and then I look around and I'm like, okay, what little tornado just ripped through my house? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. I'm my own tornado. And I need to take responsibility for it, right? Like we're in a society where it's like, oh, someone else's problem. No, like it's mine. Like I'm responsible for my feelings. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for my everything.
So clean up your mess, whether that's internal or external. You got to take ownership of that. And I think it speaks to a lot of whether someone's a homemaker, to the CEO, to the frontman who's opening the door, to everyone. It implies to everyone that clean up your mess. There's another one there, which is, I think it says something about no one can stop you except you. I love that statement. Where did that come from?
Well, aren't we our own worst enemies? Like going to the gym, you have every intention of making it 300 days and you made it 280. What happened on those other ones? Almost always it's us. I'm tired. It's raining. I'm bored. I will need to sleep in. I'll get to it later. I'll go later this afternoon. And then it never happens.
And so how does one take them out of their way? What's the secret there?
I really, really getting clear on what you want and making it a non-negotiable. A friend of mine, she's amazing. She just lost over 100 pounds. And over the course of 2-3 years, whatever it was. And I asked her, I said, Jen, how did you do that? And then how do you keep going to the gym even when you don't want to? And she said something so simple, but so profound. She said, I decided that I was never going to break a promise that I made to myself.
This is my heart. I will never break a promise that I make to myself.
So you have to be careful, right? So if you're going to make a promise, that means you got to keep it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And it applies again to every aspect of our existence because ultimately it's us who are coming in our way and are stopping us. So to all our listeners, if you make a promise to yourself, never break that promise. Yeah, love that. Full body yeses. What do full body yeses mean?
Holy cow, this is the craziest concept for me to understand and grasp and then do. And I can't say I'm perfect at it. But I was such a yes person and an experience-driven person that I'd be like, do you want to? Like a friend of mine called me up and he was like, hey, do you want to go to Oregon with my mom and I? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, wait, you didn't ask where or when or what? No, I'm like, well, that's not what you asked. You asked if I wanted to go. Yeah, I wanted to go. And and so those are like big, easy things. But the subtler things, a whole body yes is like, do you want to do this? And when your gut tells you no, but you do it anyway, don't you always feel a little ick about it? And so if your body says no, and I'm big on tapping into your gut, tapping into your heart, your brain can trick you. Like, just kind of take that offline for a minute, but listen to your gut, and it will tell you, your brain's like, I want to sleep in for 10 more minutes. And your gut's like, nah, get to the gym. Right. So whole body yes is meaning like when your body says yes, do it. And if it doesn't say yes, don't. Honor it. Because when we increase communication with our bodies, life gets easier.
I love the distinction that you made there to listen to your gut and heart versus the brain because the brain will have all the head trash. But some days it's really hard to separate the two because the lines are blurred. What works for you?
Start with easy stuff. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. Because I was like, when it first was presented, I was like, well, I want to do everything. Jim Detmer, Conscious Leadership Group is where I learned this. And he nicknamed me Tear, like from Winnie the Pooh, like who's all like bouncy and happy and all the time, right? He's like, you just have Tear energy. And he would be like, Tigger, slow it down. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, exactly. Sit down, slow down, get your feet on the ground, take a breath, and then pose that question to yourself. Pause. He's like, it's so much better to say no and change your mind than to say yes and then no later. And he instructed me to go on a no diet. And this is so crazy. Actually, you say no to everything first, and then you can change your mind to a yes if you really, really want to. So someone's like, do you want to go to brunch? No. Even if you really, really do. But it makes you slow down, pause, and really check in with yourself. Do I actually want to?
It's such a new way to build this habit of the pause because, again, for the human brain, the pause feels like unproductive, but it is the most productive we can be by building that space. And I understand like the full body yeses, we've all had that, but then we listen to the brain, not the gut. And I love how you put down the distinction here. As we're getting towards the end of our conversation, in which I've thoroughly, like, there's so many nuggets of wisdom that we've spoken about, and hopefully listeners are intrigued by what we've shared. If now we go into the future, Michele, to that 80-year-old Michele in the future, and if that Michele comes to you right now and has a piece of advice for you on how to lead the rest of your years, what would she be saying?
Sweetheart, you're still taking life too seriously. Stop it. How many times do I have to tell you? Just stop it. Like, stop. It's not so serious. And make sure you get outside every day. Make sure you laugh every day. Hug people more every day. And call the ones that you love. If not every day, make it 3-4 times a week. Someone different.
Sounds so simple, right? Yet so hard to do. Yes.
That's why she's going to lecture me, because I'm not even doing that today. Son, done?
You're ready for that lecture. You're ready for that. I love that. Such a subtle conversation we had, but it's full of moments which I hope inspire the listeners to do a brave shift. And to everyone who's still with us about 42 minutes into the conversation, sweetheart, you're taking life too seriously. Stop. Just have people go outside, have some fun. The best thing you can do for yourself is to slow it down, take a breath, and pause. Because life needs to have more full body yeses than we give credit to. And nothing can stop you from achieving what you want to do except you. So get up and clean your mess. And what's important is that when life is hitting you punches, there's only one way, deep within yourself. Amplify the pain and ask that pain what needs to change. And that might put you on that path to change. What is also important is whenever you're trying to be someone and shift your identity, ask yourself, how do you define that new identity? Because a runner is someone who runs 100K a day, but someone who does 2 blocks. So choose your definition of the runner and go and get there. If you're feeling fear while you're trying to do and achieve anything, easiest, the most cheapest, simplest, don't even have words, the best way to do that is to go and exercise, get out in the nature, because that's going to allow you to figure shit out. And if you want to take control of your life, imagine that you have a magic paintbrush and write down whatever action that needs to happen, the worst case and the best case. And you'll realize that you'll never get to the worst case and life is going to be better than the worst case every single time. And to that 8-year-old Michele, have some fun while you do all of it, because things are going to take care of themselves. Have some fun and enjoy the moments that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michele, for that beautiful conversation. All the notes in the links in the show notes so that people can reach out to you and connect. Any final thoughts before we bring ourselves to closure?
I really want to hear from people too. Thanks. Like, shoot me a message, because you inspire me to be a better me.
So powerful. So everyone, Michele and I are looking onto the YouTube comments to see if you're here, if you're commenting. Anything that stuck for you, write it down. And don't share this episode with others. If you're on a podcast platform on YouTube, unless you feel that they're going to value this kind of a conversation, because not everyone's ready to go deep and amplify the pain. So if you feel there's someone in your circle who will value the conversation Michele and I have just had, and send the link to them. But if not, keep it to yourself. Enjoy it, learn from it, grow from it. Don't have to share it to anyone. And wherever you can, press that subscribe button, follow us on the podcast platform, because you have to appease the algorithms, and that's how we grow. This is Michele and Utkarsh signing off.